In 12th century England, 2 children were found lost in a forest. They spoke only gibberish, wore strange clothing, and had bright green skin.
Throughout history, many people have spent their lives trying to solve some of the world's biggest mysteries. Mysteries like what happened to the Sodder children on that tragic night in 1945. Was the famous Flying Dutchman a real ship lost at sea? And most importantly, who were the mysterious Green Children of Woolpit?
Around 2:20 a.m., radar contact with the plane was lost for good. Authorities in Beijing realized that flight MH370 was not going to reach its destination.
These questions have never been answered, and perhaps they will never be answered again. Join us as we explore these stories and look at the clues and theories behind these events. Number 1. The Green Children. Once upon a time in the 12th century, 2 strange children with green skin appeared in the village of Woolpit, England. They spoke a language no one understood and only ate raw, broad beans. Quite understandably, the locals were confused, but despite their confusion, they took them in. The boy became sick and died, but the girl lived and later learned English. She was named Agnes. Agnes said they came from St. Martin's Land. It's an underground place where it was always twilight. They found their way to Woolpit by following cattle and the sound of bells.
It is claimed that the man she married was a senior ambassador of Henry II.
Later, Agnes married Richard Barr, a real historical figure. Folklore connects their story to St. Martin of Tours and local legends about the underworld. While the story seems unbelievable, it likely comes from the real experiences of refugees. Though this story may sound strange to some of you, it probably has some truth. The children were likely Flemish immigrants who faced persecution from King Stephen or King Henry II. Lost and alone, they arrived in Woolpit, speaking Flemish. Like and subscribe right now, and you'll have amazing luck for the rest of the week. Which the villagers didn't understand. Their green skin may have been caused by malnutrition, known as green sickness. This idea makes sense because their skin returned to normal once Richard de Calne fed them real food. So what do you think? Are you a believer or a skeptic? Number 2. Disappearance of the Sodder children. On Christmas Eve in 1945, the Sodder family from Fayetteville, West Virginia, faced a heartbreaking tragedy. A fire broke out in their home. While George and Jenny Sodder managed to escape with 4 of their 9 children, the other 5 disappeared without a trace. The fire started around 1:30 a.m. when George heard glass breaking and smelled smoke. They tried to save the missing children, but the flames were too strong.
George and Jenny Sodder embarked on a relentless quest for answers.
By the time the fire department arrived, the house was already destroyed. The bodies of the 5 children were never found. Authorities searched for the children, but came up empty-handed. Even the FBI was trying to find these children. The family offered a reward for information, and Jenny remained hopeful. She said, "I know my children are alive somewhere." Over the years, there were some leads. For example, in 1967, Jenny received a strange letter with a photo of a young man who looked like one of her missing children. However, there was no solid evidence to support this. Like many other cases of missing children, people had many theories about what happened. Some believe the children died in the fire, while others think they were kidnapped or ran away. Number 3. The Babushka Lady. When John F. Kennedy was shot in Dallas, a woman wearing a headscarf and a brown trench coat watched from the grassy knoll. She is called the Babushka Lady. Her identity is still a mystery and has led to many conspiracy theories. There was chaos right after the assassination. People dropped to the ground and others ran away in fear, except for one person. Police looked for witnesses and videos of the attack, but not many people saw what happened.
Hence her nickname, the Babushka. She stood there with a wide stance.
Most cameras were focused on the president. One woman, often seen in photos, had a camera and appeared to capture the assassination. Over the years, several people claimed to be the Babushka Lady, but the FBI has not confirmed anyone. One suspect, Beverly Oliver, claimed in 1970 that she filmed the entire event, but said FBI agents took her film before she could develop it. But the public isn't fooled that easily. They were quick to point out that the camera she said she used wasn't even made until 6 years after the assassination. Despite the doubts, Oliver's story caught the attention of conspiracy theorists. They suggested she could be a spy or involved in a cover-up. To this day, the true identity of the Babushka Lady is still a secret, along with the truth behind an important part of American history. Number 4. Amelia Earhart. Amelia Earhart was an American pilot known for breaking flying records and helping women in aviation. She was the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean and the first person to fly solo from Hawaii to the US mainland. In July 1937, while trying to fly around the world, she disappeared over the Pacific Ocean. On July 2, 1937, Amelia and her navigator, Fred Noonan, left Lae, New Guinea, to fly to Howland Island for refueling.
Has located documentation of distress signals sent in the days after Earhart's disappearance.
It was the last time they were seen alive. President Roosevelt ordered a 2-week search, but they were never found. On July 19, 1937, they were declared lost at sea. Many ideas about their disappearance have been suggested. The official belief is that they crashed into the Pacific Ocean. But of course, this hasn't stopped people from coming up with theories. One theory says their plane ran out of fuel and crashed near Howland Island. Other researchers think they may have landed on Gardner Island, 350 miles away. Some items found there, like a woman's shoe and tools, suggest they might have survived for a time. Other theories claim they were captured by the Japanese or worked as spies for the US government, starting new lives after the incident. What do you think? Number 5. The Diatlov Pass Incident. On January 23, 1959, 10 hikers began a winter trip in Russia's Ural Mountains. One hiker turned back after a few days because of health problems, but the other 9 kept going. They had planned to send a message back to their sports club about 3 weeks later. When the club didn't hear from them by February 20th, they sent out a search party. Over the next few weeks, the search team found the first 5 hikers' bodies scattered in the snow. They were dressed in different ways and had strange injuries.
The next 3 hikers were found at varying distances between the tent and the tree, covered by a few centimeters of snow.
The cause of death seemed to be hypothermia. Months later, when some snow melted, investigators found the bodies of the last 4 hikers, and they had even stranger injuries. One had a broken skull, another had a twisted neck, 2 were missing their eyes, and one of those was also missing her tongue. The initial investigation couldn't find evidence of a crime and concluded that the hikers died from a compelling natural force. However, some people in Russia suspected the government was hiding something. When it was found that some hikers' clothes had traces of radiation, rumors spread that they might have died in a weapons testing accident. Number 6. Lovelock Cave. Hidden beneath layers of bat poop in Lovelock Cave, Nevada, strange rumors surfaced when miners discovered an old Native American legend about giant red-haired cannibals. This legend, however, is just a story. No real evidence of these giants has ever been found. Lovelock Cave has been used by people for thousands of years and likely held cultural importance for Native Americans. In 1911, miners James Hart and David Pugh began digging for bat guano, which was rich in nutrients and valuable as fertilizer. While excavating, they found many ancient artifacts. Archaeologist Llewellyn Lemont Loud investigated in 1912 and discovered around 10,000 items.
Perhaps a clue can be found by examining the history of the indigenous Paiute people.
In 1924, he found duck decoys made from real duck skin. During these digs, human remains were also discovered, including a skeleton claimed to be over 7 feet tall with orange hair. This story mixed with a legend from the northern Paiute people about a tribe of red-haired giants called Sitika. Some believe these giant tales originated from local entrepreneurs trying to attract tourists. Stories of giants at Lovelock Cave continue. But remember, folks, giants have never existed and never will. Number 7. The Lost Army. King Cambyses II invaded Egypt in 525 BC. In 524 BC, Cambyses launched a campaign against Ethiopia. According to the historian Herodotus, he sent a force of 50,000 men to attack the Ammonians and burn their temple. This army headed west, while Cambyses moved east toward Ethiopia. They were last seen in a mysterious place called the Island of the Blessed, about 7 days' journey from Thebes. Herodotus wrote that a deadly wind rose up, covering the troops with sand and causing them to disappear. After that, no ancient sources mentioned this lost army. Theories about what happened range from a complete fabrication to the army being buried under the sand. Logistically speaking, moving such a large army through hostile territory was challenging. They needed large supplies of water and food, which could have led to chaos. Some believe the army could have been lost, ambushed, or that the story was altered over time. To me, this is another interesting mystery from the past. What happened to them? Where did they vanish? And is there truly an army of 50,000 buried under the sands of Egypt, waiting to be found? Number 8. The Flying Dutchman. You may know the Flying Dutchman from the Pirates of the Caribbean. No? Allow me to jog your memory. The Flying Dutchman is a ghost ship that is said to sail the seas forever, never able to dock or find peace. According to legend, the ship and its crew were cursed because the captain, Hendrik van der Decken, refused to listen to warnings about a coming storm. He was a proud man who ignored his crew's pleas and defied God. As punishment for his blasphemy, Van der Decken and his ship were doomed to sail endlessly. Many sailors over the years have claimed to see the Flying Dutchman and its ghostly crew. Interestingly, some say the curse can be lifted if a new crew member willingly takes the captain's place. In some versions, if the ship ever reaches port, it signals the end of the world. The earliest stories about the Flying Dutchman appeared in the late 1600s when Dutch sailors spoke of a ghostly ship that brought bad luck. Descriptions of the Flying Dutchman often include a spectral ship with tattered sails and glowing lanterns, sailing forever with a crew of lost souls. Number 9. How the pyramids were built. The question that is as old as time is, how were the pyramids of Giza built? We don't have a definitive answer, but a new discovery could make it a whole lot clearer. Archaeologists have learned that the stones were quarried nearby, and wetting the sand helped transport them. Researchers believe a ramp was used to lift these heavy stones.
Also, if they had people in key positions at those places along the pyramids.
But the evidence for this was hard to find. Recently, a team discovered a steep ramp at another quarry in Egypt called Hatnub. It dates back 4,500 years. This ramp had staircases with holes that may have held wooden posts, hinting at an advanced rope and pulley system. This technology predates similar systems in Greek history by about 2,000 years. Therefore, they were capable of making their massive construction projects more manageable. Number 10. Jack the Ripper. Who's Jack the Ripper? Well, that's the thing. No one knows who Jack the Ripper was or what drove him to kill. He is infamous for murdering 5, possibly 6, women in London's East End in 1888. Between August and November 1888, the Whitechapel area saw 5 brutal murders. The victims were all prostitutes, and except for one, Elizabeth Stride, they were all severely mutilated. The first victim, Mary Ann Nichols, was killed on August 31st. She was followed by Annie Chapman on September 8th. Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes were both murdered on September 30th, and the last victim, Mary Jane Kelly, was killed on November 9th. These 5 are often called the canonical 5 murders.
And further investigation was carried out. They found that this was...
Many theories about the killer's identity have emerged. Some suggest he could have been a doctor or butcher due to the nature of the mutilations. Letters claiming to be from the Ripper have also surfaced but are not confirmed as real. He was never caught and stopped killing after November 1888. Number 11. The Dancing Plague. In July 1518, people in Strasbourg suddenly felt an uncontrollable urge to dance. It all started when a woman named Frau Trophea stepped into the street and began dancing. She danced for nearly a week, and soon, about 30 others joined her. By August, as many as 400 people were dancing. Local doctors blamed the strange behavior on hot blood and suggested the dancers just needed to dance it out. They even built a stage and hired musicians to play for the dancers. However, the non-stop dancing took a toll.
The city continued to search for a cure for these poor souls.
Many people collapsed from exhaustion, and some even died from strokes and heart attacks. The dancing frenzy finally ended in September, when the dancers were taken to a mountain shrine to pray for relief. This bizarre event is well documented and isn't the only one like it. Similar dancing crazes occurred in Switzerland, Germany, and Holland. Historians suggest that the fear of St. Vitus, combined with the stress of disease and famine, might have triggered this strange hysteria. Other theories propose that the dancers may have ingested ergot, a toxic mold that causes spasms and hallucinations. Number 12. Ghost ship Mary Celeste. Meals were set, but the crew of the Mary Celeste had vanished without a trace. On December 4th, 1872, the Dei Gratia ship spotted the Mary Celeste drifting near the Azores. Captain Morehouse sent crew members to investigate. They found the main hatch closed, but two smaller hatches were open. Below deck, there was 3 feet of water in the hold, and the crew's belongings were soaked. The ship was carrying 1,700 gallons of industrial alcohol, which was left untouched. Captain Briggs's logbook showed the last entry was 9 days earlier, indicating they were far from where the ship was found. Most notably, the lifeboat was missing, along with Briggs, his wife, and their 2-year-old daughter. When the Mary Celeste reached Gibraltar, many theories arose about the crew's fate: mutiny, murder, piracy, an explosion, or even a giant squid attack. The most accepted theory suggests Captain Briggs thought the ship was sinking and ordered everyone into the lifeboat, but something went wrong. Number 13. Cleopatra's Tomb. Cleopatra was the last queen of ancient Egypt. She was famous for her intelligence, charm, and her strong relationships with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. She was born in 69 BC and became queen when she was 18, ruling alongside her brother. She is often linked to the goddess Isis, and according to legend, she died from a snake bite to avoid being captured by the Romans. One of the biggest mysteries about Cleopatra is the location of her tomb. Historians think Cleopatra was buried with Antony, probably in Alexandria. However, much of the city is now underwater. Underwater archaeologist Frank Gaudio has searched these waters for Cleopatra's tomb, but hasn't found it yet. Many people believe it is still buried underwater there. Kathleen Martinez, a lawyer-turned-archaeologist, thinks Cleopatra might be buried at the Temple of Isis in Taposiris Magna, west of Alexandria. Since 2009, she has uncovered many artifacts and a long tunnel at this site. Although Cleopatra's tomb hasn't been found yet, the search keeps interest alive in her life as the Queen of the Nile. Discovering her tomb would be a major historical event. Number 14. The Bermuda Triangle. I think every kid goes through a phase where they wonder why the adults in their lives aren't more worried about the Bermuda Triangle. Like, hello? People are disappearing over here. Let's take a look at the full story. Nearly 80 years ago, 5 Navy planes took off from Florida on a routine training mission called Flight 19. Neither the planes nor their crews were ever seen again, leading to the legend of the Bermuda Triangle.
According to Philippe's records, there are wrecks completely encircling Bermuda.
This area, roughly between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, has seen many ships and planes disappear without a trace. The term Bermuda Triangle was first used in 1964 by Vincent Gaddis in an article about Flight 19. Many strange theories have been suggested to explain these disappearances, including sea monsters, aliens, and even underwater explosions. The Bermuda Triangle has unique features, including deep underwater trenches and unpredictable weather, making it a challenging area for navigation. Number 15. Black Death. The Black Death was a deadly epidemic that hit Europe and Asia in the mid-1300s. It arrived in Europe in October 1347 when 12 ships docked in Messina, Sicily. Most sailors were dead or very sick and were covered in painful boil. Within 5 years, the plague killed over 20 million people in Europe. The plague likely started in Asia and spread along trade routes.
It is estimated to have wiped out 30 to 60% of Europe's population.
Early symptoms included swollen lymph nodes, fever, and severe pain, often leading to death within a short time. People tried to avoid the sick, but the disease was highly contagious, affecting not just humans, but animals too. Although the Black Death declined by the early 1350s, it reappeared in later years. You can still get the Black Plague today, but it's very rare. If someone does catch it, we have medicines, like antibiotics, that can effectively treat it. Number 16. What happened in Tunguska? On June 30th, 1908, the largest recorded asteroid impact occurred in Siberia, known as the Tunguska explosion. The huge explosion occurred above the forest near the Podkamennaya Tunguska River. It released energy equal to about 4 megatons of TNT, which is 250 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. The blast flattened around 80 million trees over an area of 830 square miles and was so powerful that it knocked people off their feet.
Something exploded in the atmosphere that caused such ferocious destruction that over 80 million trees covering an 820 square mile radius
and broke windows hundreds of miles away. Remarkably, no crater was found. This led scientists to conclude that the asteroid exploded in the atmosphere, creating an airburst. It was likely a stony asteroid about the size of a 25-story building. Decades later, in 1927, scientists led by Leonid Kulik explored the site but found no meteorite fragments. The mystery was partially solved by studying a smaller airburst in Chelyabinsk in 2013, which helped researchers understand what happened in Tunguska. Number 17. Flight MH370. 10 years ago, Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 vanished from the radar during its journey from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. It was carrying 239 people. Despite extensive searches, the plane's main wreckage and black boxes have never been found. It sent no distress calls, but evidence showed it turned off its flight path and continued flying for 7 more hours.
Around 2:20 a.m., radar contact with the plane was lost for good.
In July 2015, a piece of debris from the plane, a flaperon, washed up on Reunion Island, confirming it had crashed. Now, U.S. science journalist and pilot Jeff Wise is starting a new project called Finding MH370. He plans to place a replica of the flaperon at the likely crash site in the southern Indian Ocean and monitor marine growth on it. Wise believes this experiment could help clarify the plane's fate. Wise hopes the project will lead to new findings that could reopen the investigation, which has so far covered over 120,000 square kilometers without success. Number 18. The Lost Colony. This is one of America's oldest unsolved cases. It began in August 1587, when about 115 English settlers arrived on Roanoke Island, off what is now North Carolina. After a previous attempt failed 2 years earlier, they aimed to create the first permanent English colony in the New World. Later that year, John White, the colony's governor, went back to England for supplies. However, a war broke out with Spain, and he couldn't return until August 1590.
Who chose to come along on this ill-fated expedition were middle-class people from London.
When he finally got back, he found no sign of the settlers, including his family, and only one clue, the word Croatoan, carved into a post. In 2007, researchers started collecting DNA from local families to see if they are related to the Roanoke settlers or Native Americans. Despite the mystery, the experiences at Roanoke likely helped later English settlers who founded Jamestown in 1607. Number 19. Florence UFO. 60 years ago, a football match in Florence was interrupted when strange objects were spotted in the sky. On October 27, 1954, thousands of fans at the Stadio Artemi Franchi stopped watching the game to look up, pointing at what they saw.
We were astonished. We had never seen anything like it before. We were absolutely shocked.
Player Ardico Magnini described it as an egg-like shape, while fan Gigi Boni recalled seeing fast-moving objects that looked like Cuban cigars. The event was not just local. Similar sightings occurred across Tuscany that day. However, some scientists, like astronomer James Mageha, argue that the objects were likely migrating spiders using webs to travel. Number 20. Secret Tomb of Attila. Attila the Hun, who invaded the Roman Empire in the 5th century AD, died on his wedding night at age 58. It's unclear if he died of natural causes or if his new wife, Ildiko, murdered him. What's even more mysterious is the location of his tomb, which has never been found. Attila led the Huns, a group that controlled much of Central Europe. He was known as Flagellum Dei, meaning Scourge of God, and demanded gold from emperors for peace. Despite his power, details about his burial are few. The only ancient source of his funeral comes from Jordanes. Scholars have been searching for it since at least the 13th century, but no one is certain if it still exists or if it has been robbed. While some are hopeful that it will be found, others prefer to leave it a mystery. And that's all for today. Which one of these was your favorite? Comment down below and let us know. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next video. Goodbye.